Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on in, and join me. I hope everyone is doing well today. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. I am doing well. Thank you for joining. Come on in, come on in. Hello, hello. Thank you, thank you. Hey, Cassandra, thank you for joining me tonight. So excited to have you all, as usual, for The Best Investment. This is my weekly segment where I provide tips and insights on how you can invest in yourself in every area of your life. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Mona-Lee Belizaire. I am a personal growth strategist, and I specifically help young adult women who are struggling with direction move from where they are to where they want to be. I'm also the creator of the I Am Choosing Me movement, and that is really a movement to encourage women to choose themselves in every area of their lives. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. If you're joining me on the replay, thank you so much for watching the replay. I look forward to your comments. I really would like my live audience to be live, and so please definitely share this live with someone. I ask that you specifically comment as well. I do want to hear from you, do want to hear what you are thinking. If this material resonates with you, what are you doing to prioritize your time or use your time or to give of your time? And so I don't want to belabor the time, and I don't want to be before you long either, but I want to say thank you so much for coming and thank you so much for joining me. Now, today's topic for the best investment is time. And so I'm going to specifically talk to you about how you can prioritize your time, how you can use your time, and how you can give your time. So once again, we're talking about time today. We're going to specifically talk about how you can prioritize your time, how you can use your time, and how you can give your time. This is going to be great. So if you don't have a pen or paper, or you don't have your phone near you so you can take some notes, definitely suggest that you do. This is really some great information, and even as I was preparing for this, I found it very helpful for me as I'm figuring out and navigating how to best use my time. So let's get right into it. So first, we're going to talk about prioritizing your time. Now, the thing about prioritizing is we're prioritizing even when we're not intentionally prioritizing. And what I mean by that is we're always investing our time into something. The challenge is whether or not we're investing our time into the right thing. So the question that you have to ask yourself is, when you're trying to figure out how to prioritize your time, is, what do I value? What is important to me? Because if something is important to you, if you value something, if you care about something, you're going to invest your time into it. And I think it's important for us to ensure that as we're thinking about prioritizing our time, we're really thinking about how we value our time as well, and how we're investing our time. So one of the verses that I think is important as we are thinking about prioritizing our time is, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added unto you. And so a lot of times that verse is specifically used for like profit or prosperity or something like that, which is not completely bad. But it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added unto you. Not just some things, all things. And that also includes the time, your time. And one of the things that I find that's very helpful for me when I'm prioritizing my time is because I value God, I put him first. There are times when I realize that I've gone throughout the whole entire day and I really haven't spent time with God, or I haven't cracked open the Bible, I haven't listened to sermon. There's nothing that has been deposited in my spirit that's going to help me. And the reason why that's important is that when we prioritize God, when we give God our time and we give him the first of our time, it helps us to filter out all of the noise. And so for me, what I found to be very helpful is that the first thing in the morning when I get up, or I set my alarm to get up at a certain time, I'm spending that time with God and I'm giving him the first part. Why is that important? because we begin to find out that in the morning time, the first part, right, when it's nobody's up, it's very quiet, it's very still. So you can hear, you can talk, you can meditate, you can really get into it. And I have found that that really works for me. Now, when you're spending that time, you're prioritizing that time, and you're giving that time to God, what happens is that, as I mentioned, you filter out the noise, but you begin to hear more clearly. You get directions, right? And we all know God gives the best directions. Holy Spirit gives the best directions. And so you are figuring out, okay, how do I invest my time? How do I use my time? How am I ensuring that I'm prioritizing my time well and investing my time well? And you gain those types of things from spending time with God and, limiting the first part of your morning specifically to anything else. Also, I think it's really beneficial for us to ensure that we ask the question, what are we valuing, right? What do we value? We spend our time with God, but we're also utilizing tools that are helping us to prioritize our time. One of the tools that I think is very helpful for us is called the Eisenhower Matrix. I'm so Jamaican. The Eisenhower Matrix. They also call it the urgent or important matrix. And that matrix is actually a tool that you can use. You can Google it, and it helps you literally to prioritize your tasks. So when you prioritize your tasks, obviously you can prioritize your time. And the way how it works is that there's urgent and important. It's a 4-quadrant table. So things are urgent and things that are important. If something is important and it's urgent, then you do it. If something is important but it's not urgent, you schedule it. If something is not important but it's urgent, you delegate it. And if something is not urgent or not important, you delete it. And I cannot tell you how many things that I know that is not important and not urgent, and I can delete it out of my day. There's also when I think about not urgent, not important, but urgent, you can schedule it. I also think about things that we can outsource. One of the things I think that's most important for us, especially as women, we're carrying a lot, right? We're wives, we're moms, we're in the community, we work, we're giving ourselves to other people, but we do ourselves such a disservice when we don't outsource some services as well. So one of the things that I know that has been tremendously helpful for me and for my family is that we have a cleaning lady, and she comes once a month, and we do the upkeep during the months, but it's been such a tremendous blessing for us, and it takes such a huge weight and pressure off of my shoulders when I don't have to, or we don't have to take care of that additional thing. And sometimes we don't as women, we don't ensure that that's something that we prioritize, outsourcing and ensuring those things that we don't have to do. Because when you're supporting somebody else, you're supporting their business. But if we don't have to clean, if we don't have to do something, it's important that we sit and we outsource some of those things. It also helps us to make more time for the things that matter, so we can invest our time in things that are necessary to us. So if you just joined, I just want to just do a recap. We're talking about time. We're talking about how you can prioritize your time. And one of the things I first said was we need to ask ourselves this question: what do you value? The moment you know what you value, what you care about, you're able to prioritize your time better. I also mentioned that prioritizing God, the first part of your morning, is something that's essential. Why? Because you can hear clearly, you know how to utilize your time, and you don't find yourself doing things aimlessly. And I also mentioned the Eisenhower Matrix, also known as the urgent important matrix. You can Google it, but it's a tool that you can use to help you to prioritize your task, and will also help you to prioritize your time. So as we are thinking about prioritizing our time, and we've gotten an opportunity to do that, right? We've asked the questions, we've done some things. The next thing we figure out is, how do I use my time? How do I use my time? And I think as we're thinking about how we can use our time, one of the things that we can ask ourselves, and I'm always someone that's asking myself questions. I'm always in a posture of self-reflection. And I think that's very important. Talk to yourself. If you believe in talking to yourself, you talk to yourself, you ask yourself some questions. And there are plenty of times when I've said to myself, self, is this a good use of your time? Are you really using your time wisely? And if I have to ask myself that question 9 times out of 10, or probably 10 times out of 10, I'm not using my time wisely, right? And so I think it's important for us to ensure that when we're doing things, we're thinking about how we are using our time. Are we using our time valuable? And in that moment, what we can do to transition from that. It also, when you ask yourself this question, it allows you to not only figure out how you can use your time, but also it helps you to recognize that, hey, I'm not using my time wisely. I'm aimlessly using my time. I'm probably scrolling too long on social media. I've been, maybe Netflixing and chilling for too long when I have other things that I need to do. Also, along with the Eisenhower matrix that I had mentioned earlier, I think another tool or something that's helpful for us is that when you are thinking about how you use your time, I think it's important for us to take an inventory of how we use our time. So if you have the opportunity either this week or you can schedule it next week, sit down and think about, what do I do during the day? Or at the end of the day, think about, what did I do today? What did I do over the course of the week? You can start with the day, you can start by the hour, you can start however you feel like. But sit and take an inventory of how you used your day. And then when you think about how you use your day, you can think about how you used your week. When you take a look at that, you'll begin to see what are some things you can take out, what are some things that you don't need. You can also start to see how long you spent on a particular thing if you want to drill it down by the hour. And I think that's helpful for us because it really allows us and gives us the opportunity to really think about, okay, as I mentioned, how we are using our time, but it gives us the opportunity to make a shift, right? So there's no point in you recognizing some gaps or recognizing some areas of improvement and you do nothing about it. If you do an inventory of your day, if you do an inventory of your week, it behooves you to really sit down and say, okay, well, what do I need to change? What do I need to do differently? Oftentimes, I think one of the things that we do as a disservice to ourselves is that we keep our to-do list in our head, right? So I am someone that I'm a visionary and I'm always doing a whole bunch of things, or a whole bunch of things are always running in my head. So one of the things that's always helpful for me is that I sit down literally as much as I can during the day or at the first part of my day or whenever I get the chance, and I make a to-do list. Now, some people would say, well, when you make a to-do list, it can be overwhelming because you're thinking about, well, I have to do all these things. But one of the things that I've learned is that when I write down everything that I have to do, it's no longer bottled up in my head. So I don't feel as overwhelmed. And I can go through, right? And I can actually utilize the Eisenhower matrix, which I just learned about. So, I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh my God, I've been using it for years. I really just learned about it, but I think it's something that I would actively use in my day to day. And here's why. Because when I write down all the things that I have to do, I can put it in something that helps me to determine whether or not this is important, whether this is urgent, whether I can schedule this, whether I can delete this, whether I can put this off to, further. As most of you all know, I'm a personal growth strategist, right? And so a part of my business is also speaking. And I've been pitching to various places and colleges. And I found that, while it's important for me to do this, as a part of my business, this is something that I can stretch it out a little bit. So I don't have to do it every day. I can schedule the time, right, to do it. And I'm not necessarily rushing to get that done or feeling that I have to do it. And so when you are prioritizing your time and you use your time wisely, you don't get as overwhelmed. So I certainly do encourage you all to take inventory of your time. Well, first of all, ask yourself if you're using your time wisely. Take an inventory of your time throughout the day and then look at it over the course of a week. But also, once you do that, ensure that you have a to-do list of those things that you want to do or you're supposed to do, and then put it against the Eisenhower matrix and see how that works for you. I think that would be very helpful for you. If you're someone that has a to-do list, I'm sure you can say to yourself, man, it's helpful for me to actually get these things out of my head and on paper. And last but certainly not least is giving of your time. Now, some of you may be saying, nah, Mona, I can't prioritize my time. I don't know how to use my time because I don't feel like I have enough time to use. I know you want me to give of my time. How is this going to work, sis? Now, I'm going to preface this by saying giving of your time becomes easier when you're prioritizing and using your time wisely. If you're not doing that, then you're going to feel like giving your time is a lot. It's going to overwhelm you more. It's going to be stretching me. It's just not going to, and you probably whatever you're doing, it's not going to be satisfying. It's not going to be fulfilling. Now, one of the things I think of when I think about giving of your time, and getting your time in order and prioritizing your time, I always think about this specific question. What is it that I've been wanting to do, that keep on saying that I want to do, and I have not been able to do it? Here's why this question is very important. And I'm going to repeat the question for those of you who may have just joined or you want to write down this question. And watch the replay if you've missed any of it, because I think it's really good for us to really think about and do some self-reflection. The question is, what is it that I have been wanting to do, but I keep saying that I don't have the time to do it? And maybe you've always wanted to do some things. Maybe you've always wanted to serve in your church. Maybe you've always wanted to find some time to volunteer in your community. Maybe you've always wanted to find some time for what's important, your family. Maybe you want to find some time to choose yourself. But because you haven't been prioritizing and you haven't been using your time wisely, right? Prioritizing and using your time wisely, the challenge is you're not able to give of your time and give yourself more time that is needed for you to do the things that you want to do. There are hobbies, I'm sure, right, that you have been wanting to do that you have not gotten a chance to do, or there are things that you used to do, but you just have not been able to pick it back up because you're so busy doing everything else and you haven't had a chance to prioritize or use your time wisely. And one of the things when I was preparing for this, I remember someone had posted on Facebook, their brother had asked him, well, when you're not working, what are you doing? And, the person really had to ponder it because they had been using their time, albeit, you have to work, but not using their time for themselves or something that they love. They really lost that joy. They lost that part of them that they needed to find again. And so often we get ourselves so mixed up and bundled up in the day-to-day of life, and we get so busy with everything else, and we don't get a chance to prioritize and use our time wisely so that we can give time to ourselves, give time to our families. One of the first questions I asked when we talked about prioritizing our time is, what do you value? When you value something, as I mentioned earlier, you're willing to give of your time to it. But it's hard when you don't prioritize that time. So I want to encourage you all to examine how you can prioritize time so that you're able to use it a little bit more wisely and give of it freely to who? Yourself and the things that matter, especially your family and hobbies that you have wanted to do. One of the things I want to also encourage you all before we get off the live is that when you're thinking about prioritizing your time and you're thinking about using your time and you're thinking about giving of your time, make sure that this is something that you're doing consistently. It's not something that you're just going to do one time and then all of a sudden you're going to feel like, man, I've really conquered this. This is a practice that you're going to have to do all the time, day in, day out, until it becomes a part of you. It has to be something that sits with you. It has to be something that resonates with you. It has to be something that what you think about is like second nature, literally. It's like driving a car. Now, for those of you who gym for a long time, when you get in a car, you just turn it on and you just drive. This has to be something that becomes a part of you. And if you slack off and you realize, hey, I'm not prioritizing my time right, or I'm not investing my time right, guess what? You get a chance to do it over again. Don't let it be something that turns you away from getting back on track and prioritizing your time well. Thank you for your comment, Valerie. Yes, this is good. It's a blessing for me too. Every week when I prepare for these lives, I promise you, I get something out of it. I am always praying that you all get something out of it, but I love how the Holy Spirit works as well because he's adding extra to it where I'm getting something out of it as well. So I just want to recap for you all if you came on the live late or you missed some part. We're talking about time, how you can prioritize your time. So I challenge you to ask yourself this question: what do you value? I also talked about prioritizing your time, spending the first part of your morning with the Lord so that you can hear clearly and you can get direction. Because when you're hearing from God, you know exactly how to use your time wisely. And then I also share with you the Eisenhower Matrix, a tool that you can use. You can Google it. They also call it the Urgent Important Tool. It's a tool that you can use throughout your day when you're prioritizing your task and also prioritizing your time. Second, I talked about using your time. And when you think about using your time, one of the questions you can ask yourself is, when you're doing something or your day-to-day, is this a good use of your time? Is what I'm doing, oh, this is a good one and I forgot this, is what I'm doing aligning with my priorities? Is what I'm doing aligning with my values? Those are good questions for us to ask ourselves. Why? Because then we begin to realize whether or not we're doing what we're doing is a good use of our time, or we're literally wasting our time. And so I also challenge you, when you're using your time, is to write down, take an inventory of what you do throughout the day. And then over the course of the week, take a look at what you're doing. And then also, if you're someone that has a lot going on, or, you're a visionary, you have a business, there's just tons of things that you're doing, take some time to write down what it is that you have to do for that day. And if you need to drill it down a little bit further, what you need to do in that hour. So one, you can get it out of your head, and two, you can see, right? If you have your paper, you can take a look at it, but also you can go back and use the Eisenhower matrix and line up those tasks with the matrix to see what are things that you can delegate, what are things that you need to do now, what are things that you can delete, and what are things that you need to delegate or schedule for another time. And finally, giving of your time. When we think about giving of our time, I first mentioned that if you don't prioritize and use your time wisely, then you're not going to want to give of your time. But when you do those things, right, you're able to give of your time. When you're able to give of your time, you're specifically able to give it to not only other people, but you're able to give it to yourself. I'm the creator of the I Am Choosing Me movement. And I specifically talked about how women can choose themselves. And when you're giving of your time, when you have more time to give, you can give more time to yourself. This allows us to be able to not have to surrender what we want to do for what we have to do. Because the things that we have to do are just as important as the things that we want to do. They're just as important. Those things are just as important, because we think about what we want to do. We think about the passion and desires that we really want to use in our day-to-day lives. So if this has been a blessing to you, if you have learned something, drop it in, please drop it in the comments. If you're watching the replay, I ask that you comment as well. This helps me to know what resonated well with you. Also, if there are topics that you would like for me to talk about on my lives, I have topics that I'm already preparing. But if there are topics that you feel like, hey, Mona, I think you should talk about this, please, you can drop it in the comments. You can also send me a DM if you so choose. But one of the things that I want you to do is do not go and let this week end and you don't share this with someone. We always, as women, we're always sharing a good deal. We're always sharing a good meal. We're always sharing a good recipe. Whatever it is that we share this with someone. If it has been good to you, share it with someone. I also ask that you check out my website, Mona-Lee-Belizaire.com. There's tons of information on how you can work with me. As I mentioned, I'm a personal growth strategist, so I specifically work with young adult women, and I encourage them, if they're struggling with direction, to move from where they are to where they want to be. And I would love the opportunity to work with you, to journey with you as you try to figure out where you want to go and who you want to be. Thank you all so much for joining. I truly appreciate you taking this time on a Thursday at 7 p.m. Next week is a special week. The fourth Thursday of every month, I'm going to be having a guest speaker. And our guest speaker next week, I won't tell you who she is, but our guest speaker next week, we're going to be talking about confidence. She is a master at confidence. She's written a book about confidence, and I can't wait for you all to hear. I think this is something that's really pertinent for women, especially in every season, but I think especially in this season as we're still trying to navigate the pandemic and figure out things. I think it's important for us to figure out, okay, well, where do we fit? Where do we fit in all of this? Where does our confidence sit? This is such a great time for introspection. So I want you to come back next week, May 27th at 7 p.m. right here, so you can hear us talk about confidence and what does that mean for you as a woman, how you grow in confidence, right? Because confidence is something that you're continuously growing in. So once again, thank you very much. I appreciate the time that you spend with me. Share this with someone, and always, always remember, you are the best investment. Have a great rest of your week and take care.